Welcome back to the Gentleman's Gazette. When shopping for shoes online or in store, it seems like the sizing is all over the place. It's disorganized and subjective. And the reason is, it is. Even in the same country, shoe sizing is anything but standardized. But once you take into consideration regional differences, it becomes even more obscure. I mean, how can someone be a size 9 in the UK, a size 10 in the US, a size 27 in Japan, a size 41 in Brazil, and a size 43 in Europe? My feet certainly aren't growing that quickly. In today's video, we'll discuss 1. How shoes and feet are measured. 2. How regional shoe sizes developed and why they did so. 3. Why converting shoe sizes is so difficult. And 4. We'll provide resources that will help you find the right shoe for your feet. Because we're a menswear channel, we focus on men's shoes, not women's shoes. So first up, how are shoe sizes calculated and conveyed? Basically, there's 2 possible ways of sizing a shoe. One is to size the foot, the other the last. So you might ask, aren't those the same things? Actually, no. If you create your sizing based around the foot, you'll do just that. You measure the length of the foot and the width in the ball area. The foot is measured in length from the tip of your longest toe to your heel, and the width in the widest area of your ball. The last is the piece of wood or plastic a shoe is built around, and it's typically larger than your foot, so your toes don't hit the front of your shoe every time you take a step. Here, the length is measured from the heel point to the front point, which is longer than your foot, and the width in the ball, or maybe around the ball area, which is probably also wider than your foot. Now, sometimes people measure the actual last, or they measure the shape on the inside of the shoe. It all depends and varies, making it more varied and subjective. Now, in order to achieve the perfect fit, more proportions have to be taken into consideration. There's the instep, your arch, and the proportion of your toe length to the rest of your foot. Also, not all heels are the same size. And if you want to learn more about all the measurements you take for a bespoke shoe, we got you covered in this video. Now, while a custom shoemaker takes into consideration all these different aspects of your foot, especially the fact that they're not proportional on the left side and the right side, a mass-produced shoe does not do that. Instead, to accommodate the largest possible group of people, the last ends up with more wiggle room, so more people fit into the same shoe size. In short, you compromise ultimate comfort for sellability of the shoe. Now, how much add-on space is given to any particular last really comes down to the manufacturer. Of course, each manufacturer does what they think is best and works with their existing sizing, thus creating even more sizing inconsistencies across the board. Think of it this way. Shoe sizes are just a range and an idea to give you an understanding of what shoe might fit you and which ones might not. These standard sizes come in either full sizes or half sizes, which allow for a more precise fit. They all have a 0 point or starting point where the smallest size begins and then it goes up from there. On the top end, there truly is no limit. I mean, just take a look at this shoe. The scale used to define what a half size and what a full size is varies greatly between different regions in the world. But why? Actually, we have to take a look at the history to fully understand that. In a nutshell, for most of human history, shoes were made in or around the household. As trades became more specialized, the shoemaker evolved and made shoes for you. Basically, an individual sat down, took a look at your feet, and created a pair of shoes. Now, fit wasn't always perfect, but it was focused on an individual pair of feet. During the Industrial Revolution, clothing and shoes were mass-produced, thus bringing the cost of a pair of shoes or clothing down considerably. While the massive scale made things more efficient to produce and therefore much lower in cost, the comfort had to sacrifice and sizing became symmetrical and somewhat standardized. Why? Well, after all, this pair of shoe didn't have to fit just one person anymore, but a range of people. In the West, one of those first systems was developed in Great Britain. So UK sizing today is primarily used in the UK and in former colonies or areas of the Commonwealth. And that system has ancient origins that goes back to the antiquity. Back then, units of measurement were calculated based on human elements, such as the foot. The measurement unit foot was based around the length of a foot, but obviously no 2 feet are the same length, and so they needed some standardization. In England in 1324, King Edward II declared that 1 foot consisted of 12 inches. Now an inch was as long as 3 barley corns laid next to each other the long way. So why on earth would you use barley corns as a standard for units of measurements, you might wonder? 1, because they were easy to get a hold of, and 2, because they were the same size. Well, close enough to the same size. Although, frankly, I prefer my malted barley corns in liquid form. Cheers. Now, if you believe it or not, the barley corn measurement itself was used to be a part of the standardized shoe size system. Starting at the 0 point, adding the length of 1 barley corn, or 1/3 of an inch, equaled 1 full size. Now the issue was that the starting point could either be the foot or the last. And then sometimes UK sizes would start at 0 or at 1. So ideally, a UK size 1 would fit a foot that was 8 inches long, or a last that was 8 2/3 of an inches. So accordingly, a UK size 2 would be 1 barley corn or 1/3 of an inch longer, making it 9 inches on the last. Now, as time went on, some shoemakers realized that 1/3 of an inch or 1 barley corn was a little too much to find the perfect fit, because some people had a shoe that was too small and the next size up was too big. Some shoemakers found that they had a better fit and greater precision if they used 1/4 inch increments rather than 1/3 of an inch increments. For example, the Academy of Armory and Blazon from 1688 states that there's only a 1/4 inch difference between full sizes. So as you can see, over time, the standardized system was not standardized at all. Furthermore, as people generally have grown along with their feet, most UK sizes now start at size 3 or 4, not at 0 or 1 anymore. That being said, 0 points can vary from manufacturer to manufacturer. On top of that, the scale per full size can vary between a 1/4 inch and a 1/3 of an inch. And then there are half sizes, of course. But overall, there's no consistency in UK sizing that guarantees you the same fit when you see the same size. So what about US shoe sizing? Well, as with many things, the US shoe sizing originated on the UK system. And, of course, because things in the US are always bigger and better, there was lots of innovation around that original UK system. So in 1888, the standardization of US shoe sizes was put to paper by Edwin B. Simpson. Based on the original UK barleycorn system, each full size went up by 1/3 of an inch. However, because it started with a different 0 point, each size was about 1 point larger than in the UK. So the US 10 was a UK 9, the US 11 was a UK 10, and so forth. Up to this point, the width of a size was not determined independently, but it just grew with larger sizes in a somewhat proportional way. Now, Simpson understood that people that had feet of the same length might have very different widths, and so he added a slim and a fat option along with a regular option. The width of US size 10 slim would that be of US size 9 regular. The width of US size 10 fat would be that of US size 11 regular. You get the gist. While I doubt Simpson's terminology would be applied today, he really helped men to get a better fitting shoe at the time. Simpson also realized that 1/3 of an inch was quite a bit of distance to cover, and so he introduced half sizes into his system. Unfortunately, most manufacturers didn't adapt them at the time. But why did the shoe manufacturers not adapt the idea of half sizes? Well, think about it with an economic lens. If you have to add half sizes to your full sizes, you basically double the cost of the stock a shoe shop has to invest. Meaning all of a sudden I have to invest twice as much money, and I have to convince my customer that there's a new system that works better for them in the hopes to make more sales, not fewer. That's a pretty hard sell, isn't it? Now in 1887, the American Retail Boot and Shoe Dealers National Association adopted Simpson's standard. But in reality, the spirit of individuality came through big time in shoe sizing, and so in the US, there was just as much variation between sizes and manufacturers as there was in the UK. Deeply frustrated with that situation, American entrepreneur Oliver Cornelius Ritz Waller wanted to change that. His family owned a shoe store, and in 1916, he patented the Ritz stick. It offered a standardized way to measure your feet both in length and width. The Ritz stick enjoyed great popularity, and many stores adopted it, but there were also a lot of them who just didn't. Some even added other proprietary sticks, which added to the confusion. In 1925, Charles F. Brannock, whose family was also involved in the shoe business, came up with his version of a standardized sizing stick. He aptly named it the Brannock device. The Brannock device has a 0 point with US men's size 1. That's for a foot length of 7 2/3 of an inch, which makes for a last length of 8 1/3 of an inch. Each full size increases by 1 barleycorn or 1/3 of an inch. The Brannock device standardized width as AAA as the narrowest width, D as the standard width, and EE as the widest width. Much more polite terminology than fat, don't you think? The width increases about 3/16 of an inch per size. Now, unlike the Ritz stick, the Brannock device also accounted for the arch length, which is measured from the heel to the ball. Now, taking the special scale of the arch length into consideration, a shoe size may be chosen larger or smaller depending on your arch length. While today the Ritz stick is still in use, the Brannock device is much more popular and widely adopted. You'll see that many shoe stores and some brands even advertise that their sizing conforms with the Brannock device. That being said, not everyone has adopted it, and there can still be variations in shoe sizes, even from the same manufacturer, claiming to have adopted the Brannock device size guide. Now, what about European sizing, which is sometimes also called continental sizing? Although the metric system was developed centuries earlier, it wasn't widely adopted until the 18th century. In France, the metric system was employed for a standardized shoe sizing system. It co-opted the incremental size increasing system from the US and the UK. But instead of a barleycorn, they used something called Paris point. One Paris point equaled 2/3 of a centimeter or 6.67 millimeters. That meant with every full size up, the shoe would get 2/3 of a centimeter or 6.67 millimeters longer. Now comparing that to the UK and the US systems, where you have 1/3 of an inch, which equals 8.47 millimeters, that means that the jump from size 11 to size 12 in the UK or in the US is bigger than the jump from size 44 to size 45 in Europe. European sizing is used in most of Europe, but also other countries in the Middle East and South America. 0 points for adults' men's sizes is typically a 38, but it varies. It's approximately equivalent to a UK 4 and a US size 5. So depending on the manufacturer, about 2 to 2.5 points in length are added to the last to account for the last overhang and the comfort when walking. Now, in Brazil, the measurement is similar to the European one, but effectively only measures the foot alone. Therefore, Brazilian sizing is typically 2 sizes smaller than European sizing. So, Brazilian size 43 equals European size 45. In theory, the smaller sizes, especially when it comes to half sizes in Europe compared to the UK or the US, would allow for a more precise fit, but in practice, different manufacturers use slightly different standards, and you don't get a uniform fit when buying shoes there either. As you can see, this is quite frustrating, especially from a consumer point of view. And other people recognize that as well, so they came up with the Mondopoint System in an effort to unite the world when it came to shoe sizing. It was proposed by the International Organization of Standardization in the 1970s. Mondo comes from the Latin word mundus, or world, which was a true attempt to create a worldwide system. Originally, the system used millimeters, measuring the foot from the back of the heel to the tip of the toe. It has a width vertical line between the first and the fifth metatarsophalangeal joint. I needed Chris, our cameraman, to help me pronounce that correctly. It was rounded up to the nearest 5mm value and communicated in length followed by width. For instance, a foot measuring 278mm in length and 109mm in width would be a size 280 by 110. Now, as you can see, those numbers are a lot bigger than the ones in the UK and the US system or the European system. So eventually, many people started using centimeters instead of millimeters. In that case, the size would then be 28/11. Unfortunately, Mondopoint only added to the confusion as it wasn't able to get everyone on board. That being said, it is widely adopted for sports and athletic shoes. You can also find it in parts of Russia, China, Japan, Taiwan, and South Korea. Again, many of those nations use the centimeter system instead of the millimeter system that it was originally designed with. If you'll check out our website, we'll provide you with a comprehensive size conversion chart so you can figure out what size you are in each country and system. That being said, the actual sizes will always vary, typically also between makers. So as a consumer, you have to understand what is my last and what is my size in that last. And then once you know that, you may understand if I have this size with this last and width in this manufacturer, then I would go for this size in that manufacturer. In my experience, you have to try things out or find others who will tell you for each manufacturer and model what size they have and what size they have in a different shoe. That being said, they may have the same foot length, but their arch length may be different than yours. They may also have a different widths. So at the end of the day, you will have to try it on for the perfect result. Over time, though, as you build your shoe collection, you'll have a very good understanding of what size it is that works for you. For me, typically, I'm between size 44.5 to 45 European or 10.5 to 11 UK. Same in the US, I can be 11 to 11.5. Now, sometimes these sizes are off and I have to go outside of that range. Ultimately, shoe manufacturers are fully aware of these issues, and often in their sizing charts on their website, you will find instructions where they're like, well, get your typical shoe size or use the product device, or they might say, well, for this boot, typically they run large, so choose half size smaller than what you would typically order from us. Sadly, some makers even employ vanity sizing when it comes to feet. Here in America, for instance, some men think it is very favorable to have big feet. Because as you know what I say about men with big feet, they need big socks. So if you're sick and tired of the uncomfortable one-size-fits-all socks, take a look at our website where we have Fort Belvedere socks in 6 different sizes. So you'll find something that is comfortable all day and won't slide down. Of course, I'm biased because I designed those socks, but I wear them every day. Now, if you're curious, a product device costs about $65 on Amazon. You can also find it in many shoe stores, or you can print off a paper version. Of course, then it's important that your printer is properly calibrated, otherwise the print may be off and the whole sizing will be off too. Therefore, I don't suggest that option. Now, something we did is we took over 40 brands and shared our experiences based on our team. Oftentimes, we got shoes from different brands for different people, and you get that full feedback in this accompanying guide on our website. Ultimately, when it comes to shoe sizing, the fit and your comfort is more important than a certain number. So if you're curious how a dress shoe should fit, we got a video for you. In today's outfit, I'm wearing a brown and oatmeal tweed jacket paired with a Polo Ralph Lauren sweater vest in a gray pattern, a cashmere tie in brown, gray, and yellow, and a shirt from Eton in white with blue and brown elements. My pants are true high-waisted corduroys from Fort Belvedere. They're part of our range. They're fully cut and they drape really nicely. They're extremely hard wearing and will be a great companion for years to come. You can find a full color range in our shop. My socks are gray from Fort Belvedere, and my shoes are from LDM in a size 10.5 UK. They're brown Scotch grain with some suede Oxford boots with a wingtip design. Last but not least, I'm wearing a gold ring with a yellow citrine stone that picks up the color of my yellow corduroy pants, and a Grün Precision wristwatch that's quite thin with a brown lizard strap that picks up the color in my tie. The scent in today's video is the Roberto Ugolini Oxford, which goes well with my shoes, the brown tones in my outfit, and the classic scent profile.